we're not trying to put ourselves through pain. More about allowing the body to use this resistance to its aid and create a little bit more flexibility in that ankle.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Will Myers, certified personal trainer and licensed massage therapist. And here today, we're going to talk about ankle mobility. Why is it important? What are the muscles that can make it tight? What are the reasons that it gets tight? And what are some of the best things that you can do to mobilize that joint? Today, I'm going to show you how to use a couple different pieces of equipment. We've got our foam roller. Now remember, these come in different densities and different lengths. So you may want to start out with those softer rollers just so you can kind of feel what it's like. But then eventually you're going to want to go a little bit more dense because you're going to want to feel that pressure. We're also going to be using a resistance band to work with assisted stretching. I'm going to show you how to use this therapy ball to also release some tension that may be locked up in those calves. And then to finish it off, we're going to bring out the massage roller and then also show you how to energize the appropriate muscles of that lower limb. Now that you know the equipment, you know the objective, you know what we're looking for, and you know what you're in for, let's go ahead and take a look at the anatomy and see what the muscles actually look like.
Okay, so when it comes to this area, we're talking about three major muscles. Okay, so the first muscle group that we're talking about, of course, is the calves. And so there's two primary muscles that you need to know about this. There's one that's called the gastrocnemius. Okay, notice the attachment point. Here's your knee. The attachment point is actually above the knee. Okay, then it brings it all the way down and you start to see it turn into tendon. That's that Achilles tendon that we're talking about, also known as the calcaneal tendon, the very tight banded tendon that actually meets up into those calves. So that's the gastrocnemius. That's the one that's basically on top, okay, when you look at your calves. Underneath of that is this here called the soleus. This is the image cut away. The soleus still comes all the way down. Okay, now it's important to know that this gastrocnemius is the muscle that crosses two joints. It crosses the ankle and it crosses the knee, whereas the soleus only crosses the ankle. So in other words, if you want to isolate this soleus, you have to make sure that the knee is slightly bent so the gastrocnemius is not held tight. Over here on the front, let's talk about the one primary muscle that is that tibialis anterior. Okay? This muscle is consistently used for balance whenever we're trying to protect our body from moving forward, but it's very commonly ignored when it comes to training, stretching, energizing, releasing, trigger points, all of that stuff. So we want to make sure that we are working into the tendons down here and then bring our way all the way up into that muscle. Many times that muscle can get confused and jumbled up and you have a bone right in there. We want to make sure that there's a strong separation between the two. Okay? Notice how that muscle here leads down to the front of the toes. So that means it's going to help dorsiflex the foot and it's also going to help extend those toes. Now the muscles in the back end there, they of course are going to help us plantar flex the foot, but then also flex those toes.
So to start, let's look at the ankle. Okay, so we already looked at those muscles and bones and joints. Now let's feel around it, see what it all feels like. Remember, we want to start with the joints, deep down in the joints first, and then we'll work through the rest of the muscles. We're going to place the pads of those fingers right at the base of that ankle. So you're going to feel around in there, and then lift those toes up to get into our flexion, and then you're going to pin, and then bring that foot down. Okay, so the pinning, remember, is those finger pads, and you're just feeling different parts of your ankle here. Now, there's all different points that you want to make your way around. And so what I'm doing is every time that I flex, I'm changing those finger positions and I'm moving my way around the whole front of that ankle. Before moving on to the rest of the calf there, or the rest of the ankle, I like to then also find that dividing point between this muscle, tibialis anterior, and then that actual tibia. So what you're going to do is just pull, grab that muscle with your fingers and pull to the side. So see how I'm like separating that? I'm pulling that away from that bone. Okay? There's all sorts of fibers in there, and so we want them to be nice and loose. If you're feeling it stuck, you can dig those fingers in there, kind of move back and forth a little bit. Also remember our pin and stretch technique. You can pin and then flex that foot up and down. And I guarantee if you pin and then move your foot like this, you're gonna feel that muscle in there pushing your fingers back out, and then every time that you allow your foot to drop, you'll be able to sink even deeper. As we make our way to the back of the ankle, I like to use my thumb, and I'm gonna pin right here, and you're grabbing that Achilles tendon. So I'm gonna actually pull my toes up, okay? So you're pinning, and now the direction is when your toes are coming up, we put that pressure, okay? So I'm actually using that muscle in the front to help allow that stretch. Now once you feel kind of comfortable in there, then I like to use the base of my hands to really push those two muscles together. And then again, flexing the foot up and down while you're creating that pressure in between the base of your palms. Of course, there's all sorts of other parts of the foot. Remember these tendons here, what they do is they help the toes extend, and then the tendons on the bottom help the bottom of the foot and the toes flex. So they're included too. But today, let's specifically talk about those muscles we just mobilized there. Okay, because it's easy for positioning, we're gonna start with the massage roller. Now you wanna place this foot in a position to where that leg can be completely relaxed. Now with this roller, we wanna make sure we are never rolling on that bone, that tibia. So instead you're gonna be on the opposite side, and we don't want that muscle flex. So I'm not gonna pull the toes up really high and make that muscle tight, nor am I just gonna point them all the way down and then stretch that muscle. Instead, try to stay nice and flat, and then you're just gonna pull up and down. Now I put most of the pressure when I'm going in the direction of the heart. I do have a little pressure on the way down, but again, my focus is on the way back up, okay? So starting on that tibialis anterior, you can then move that roller behind, and basically we're making our way around the whole lower leg. A good friend of mine tried this out for the first time before he was playing basketball, and he told me that his ankles and legs felt looser as if he had been playing for 30 minutes to an hour, okay? And that's just maybe 5 to 10 minutes of rolling out the calves, the tibialis anterior, and you know that the quads and hammies are involved too. But this stuff really helps boost circulation, and with that circulation is mobility and fluidity, and we can start to get the ankle to move more. All right, so there are all your therapy techniques. Now let's talk about one technique on how to energize. So when you turn this on, you're not gonna want it to be too crazy on the intensity. And remember, we never are gonna roll on that bone. Okay, when it comes to all the different muscles there, for the most part, those calves need to be lengthened and stretched. So what we're gonna do is energize and excite the muscle in the front, which is that tibialis anterior. So here's a nice quick up close look to what's going on in the calves when we're bringing out the foam roller. And so you can of course roll side to side, which is very effective in just kind of rolling through some of that tension and getting some of that lactic acid to push out. You also can go up and down. Notice I'm always, no matter what technique, I'm always moving around, consistently switching it up and down. And then of course is that last principle of the pin, or the first principle of pin and stretch, which is just flexing that foot while we have the pressure there. Of course, if you want more, you bring that other foot into the game, that other leg, and now you have a little bit more weight. I don't necessarily recommend lifting your body up and then doing this, because you put so much pressure into those calves that you actually could tighten them up and make them worse. Same idea when you take it to the ball. Remember, the ball is just going to be much more specific. So for some of you, this may actually be a little bit more intense. When you find that position or find that spot, again, try to work your way on through. Again, you can hold on a spot, you can move around lightly. The whole entire point here is you're just getting all that stuff flowing and moving it around. So for this first stretch, we're going to be paying attention to that muscle that's crossing both joints. Now, if you remember that, that was that gastrocnemius. So that means that we've got the two different portions on each side, of course, and that muscle there then passes the knee, attaches up in here, and then also down below the foot. So in order to stretch that, I have to make sure that the knee is straight. So we're just gonna start with both feet up. You can face a wall or your counter, place your front foot even, and then step back with this front foot or back foot. Now here, your goal is to push that heel down into the ground and then straighten this knee out as much as you can.
Now commonly, the foot wants to turn out to the side. Make sure that the toes are pointed forward, and then your goal then is to bend this front knee, but do not allow that back heel to come up or the back knee to bend. Use your glutes if you have to, extend that leg a little bit, and then really make sure that that knee is straight. You'll feel that stretch going all the way through. In order for us to pass the gastrocnemius and get to the soleus, we have to bend that knee. So what I'm going to do is switch the feet. Imagine this is a wall, or you could use a bench, is fine. You don't have to worry about the back leg this time. In order for us to still get to that, we still have to dorsiflex the foot, right, in order to stretch it because it passes underneath. But we have to bend this knee to get that gastrocnemius to relax. So a way that you can test yourself is bring your toes up to the wall or the counter, keep your heel flat, and bend your knee, see if you can touch the wall or counter without your heel coming up. If you can, bring those toes back a little bit and try again. Bring them back a little bit and try again. Find your range. So that's about it for me. So whereas if I go any further, see that heel come up? I don't want the heel coming up. So I want to come forward a little bit, and I'm going to work within this range and test the flexibility of that soleus. So let's take this resistance band. We're going to actually slip knot it around a really secure post. Now, if you have the resistance band that has the door holder, you can place this in the door. You're looking for roughly about waist, maybe a little bit lower than waist height, because we want to create a resistance band pulling in this direction. If you notice, that resistance band is kind of in between the thigh there, just because I have quite a high bench. So we're going to start out, we place our foot inside of that band, and we want that band to be right in that flexion part of the ankle. From here, I'm going to then step out and kind of create some resistance. This band should be pretty tight. Now, how far you step forward is going to increase this stretch as well. So what I'm going to do is lift with my hand, lift the body forward a little bit more, then position my body to where I can bend my front knee. Now notice, when I bend the front knee, which way do you think that the resistance band is pulling the ankle? It's going to pull it that way in the direction of the post, right? So that's going to actually aid and help me get a little bit more of my stretch. Now, of course, your goal is to be able to get to a nice and flexed position without any shooting pain in this area. Now, when you're doing your squat, are you going to flex this much? Not necessarily, but it's great to be able to own that flexion. Now with this one, I've just turned around and I'm going to use the resistance in the exact opposite way. My goal is still to get this ankle to stretch though. So now, as I allow my body to go forward, I'm going to try my best to keep that heel down. Now I'm going to add a little bit of resistance here. Remember, the goal is to keep that heel down. I'm going to allow this band to help me stretch that ankle out. Again, flexing forward. We're not trying to put ourselves through pain. More about allowing the body to use this resistance to its aid and create a little bit more flexibility in that ankle.
I hope that you enjoyed that information there. Not only how to work the ankles, but what you're made up of. Really, it comes down to understanding your muscles, how they're supposed to move, how they're supposed to feel. Once you have that understanding, you can then start to transition into using the joint properly, whether it be in your squat, whether it be grocery shopping, or just getting up and down from a picnic, okay? Whatever it is that you need, take your time and focus. Stay tuned for the next one, and again, if you don't mind, shoot this out to a friend that could use it. I'll see you soon.